Hi guys, welcome to today's video. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you for sticking with me. If you're new to the channel, my name is JCUB and I'm pleased to have you. Do well to like, subscribe, share, and of course, leave a comment. Today we're talking about one of the sobering truths we find in scripture, and that is disobedience has consequences. This isn't just a threat, this is reality. God does not take the sin of disobedience lightly. And that is why scripture in 1 Samuel chapter 15 verse 22 says, obedience is better than sacrifice. Our anchor scripture for today is 1 Kings chapter 13 from verse 1 to 32. I'll just go ahead and tell you the story because it's a long read. 1 Kings chapter 13 tells us a story of a young prophet from Judah who the Lord instructed to go and warn King Jeroboam of Israel because King Jeroboam had erected an altar of golden calves and was going to offer sacrifices to them in Bethel. Now, this young prophet for Judah, whose name was not given, went and met King Jeroboam in Bethel and prophesied as the Lord told him to about the destruction of that altar and also the birth of Josiah. As soon as he was done speaking, the king raised his hand and pointed to the young prophet and said, "Seize him." Instantly, the king's hand became paralyzed such that he couldn't put it down, and the altar broke and the ashes poured, just as the prophet had prophesied. And then King Jeroboam appealed to the young prophet and told him to beg God to heal him. The young prophet did, and his hand became well again. King Jeroboam then told this young prophet to come and dine with him so that he can reward him for what he has done. The young prophet replied to King Jeroboam and said, "No, God has instructed me not to eat or drink and not to return the same way I came." That is, God instructed him to go through another route. And he left. In Bethel, there was an old prophet whose sons returned and told him what had happened. And the old prophet asked which way the young prophet took. When the sons directed him, he went after the young prophet and found him and appealed to him to follow him back home so that he can dine with him. This young prophet repeated the same thing he told the king to the old prophet and told him, "No, God instructed me not to eat or drink and not to return through the same way I came." And this old prophet then lied to the young prophet and told him that angels ministered to him and told him to be hospitable to the young prophet, which was a lie. This young prophet believed the old prophet and followed him back home. While they were at table, the voice of the Lord came through the old prophet and said to the young prophet, "You have disobeyed me, and because you have done this, you're going to die, and you will not be buried in your family grave." When they finished eating, the young prophet went on his way, and on his way, he got attacked and killed by a lion. And the lion stood beside his dead body with the donkey. The news of what happened got to Bethel, and the old prophet went and brought back the body of the young prophet and buried him in his family grave, that is, the family grave of the old prophet. When I read this scripture the first time, it messed with my thinking because I was like, God, how did you not see that it was not entirely this young man's fault? But then, as I was pondering on it, I came up with this two lessons that I'll be sharing with you. Lesson number one: when God speaks, when God gives an instruction, it is to be followed to the latter. It doesn't matter who is speaking, even if they claim to be speaking from a divine authority, uphold what God says. And this is very important because in this time and age, there are a lot of people speaking, and some claim to be speaking for God. And they seem to be saying things that contradicts what God says in the Bible. Hmm. This is a call to uphold the laws and the commands of God. And you might want to ask, why should I uphold it? You see those laws, you see those commands, they are not there to try to harm us. They are not there to prevent us from exercising our freedom. And I think this is one thing that the enemy is doing. He's making it look like those things that God said don't do is because he's trying to stifle your freedom and prevent you from exercising your freedom. But this is what the devil does. He makes it look like God's words should not be obeyed because they stifle our freedom. That's not correct. And part of the things that he has even used now to make people not to take God seriously is the concept of mercy. We've been taught mercy in such a way that it makes it look like mercy is God's tolerance for our sin. That's not correct. In my opinion, I think mercy bridges the gap that sin seeks to create between us and God, but it doesn't entirely wipe out the consequences of our actions. One of the scriptures that we use in our prayer for mercy, Psalm 51, is attributed to David. But let me even remind you, David was not saved from the consequences of his actions. And I want to read them out to you. One was that that child died. The other one was that, as prophesied by Prophet Nathan, the sword did not depart from the house of David. Another one is that God told him, "You will not build for me because your hand is soiled with blood." Even though David wanted to build for God so desperately. So think about it. God didn't even spare the man who the Bible says is the man after God's own heart from his own sin of disobedience. How much more you and I? Point number two, partial obedience is still disobedience, and intentions don't really count. Unfortunately, that's what we see because this prophet intended to follow God's command, but he was deceived. Despite that, he still faced the consequence. And when we talk about consequence, yours may not be that you will die. Consequences may be immediate or not, but there is always a consequence for disobedience. It could be like that of Adam and Eve, who were chased out of the Garden of Eden. Maybe you will lose a place that God has destined you to be in. Now you begin to suffer because of the disobedience. Maybe, as in the case of Saul, you will lose your throne or your authority. God will send somebody, God will anoint your replacement while you're still alive. It could be other consequences that may not be so obvious. But make no mistakes, every sin of disobedience has consequences. And I want to encourage you, even though God offers us mercy and forgiveness, there are things that we lose when we keep repeating the same sin over and over again. And some of them may be obvious, some may not be obvious. But I pray that God will give us the grace to be able to live out our lives obeying his every command, even when it is not comfortable. Have you been blessed? Please go ahead and like and share this video. Until my next video, stay joyful, stay prayed up, stay blessed. Bye for now.